I think people know that I've been into archery for quite a while now, shooting on the recurve and just having a great time with that. And because Andrea and I always talk about the healthy foods that we love eating, and we're always getting more and more into food, we made the decision that we want to try hunting. We're starting in a way that I think is pretty familiar, which is we're going to Wisconsin with a friend who has bow hunted and has experience there, and we're going to be hunting whitetail this fall.
I don't care if you are a meat eater, if you're vegetarian, that part doesn't matter. What does matter is that if you're sitting here today, it's because of hunting. Because if people didn't hunt, we would not be here as we sit here today as modern humans.
I do believe all humans stem from hunters. You just look at our brains, and our brains are the size they are most likely from eating meat that at some point was hunted. We are
hand-built by thousands of years of evolution for exactly this thing.
Yeah.
And so to not experience that, I think is sad. I think everybody should experience this thing because it's what your body wants to do, is to be out there hunting.
There's not a centimeter of this planet that humans haven't touched or messed with. Really, there's not. And so we kind of take this concept of wild space and we put it on this huge pedestal. We're like, well, animals belong in the wild. Okay, well, that wild space is limited and it has a carrying capacity. So what are we going to do with the rest of them?
It's a heavy thing to see something living, and then you're the cause of then you see that thing not living.
Yeah.
It's powerful. It's a very powerful thing, and I've done that before. It's definitely intense.
I always look at it as it's a connection to nature. It's knowing where my food comes from, and hopefully taking these lessons, these outdoor morals, if you will, instilling them in my kids and really anyone else that wants to come along.
There's always a trade-off. You cannot eat or consume or survive anything as a human without the trade-off of lives being lost to something.
Yes.
I grew up in central Illinois. There's plenty of hunting around me. My family didn't do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so to come into it as an adult has been really interesting and really eye-opening. I'm the adult learner in this, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But the more I have learned about it, the more into it I have become. And I think that that's a really good sign of anything that's worth doing. How long do we have until the hunt? Like, it's about 3 months, isn't it?
Yeah.
Until we're really out there doing it.
September, October.
So I guess in some ways I had pictured that's a lot of time. But as I keep doing more homework, I keep realizing that that's not a lot of time for all the things that we have to do. So we're on our way to a nice outdoor range. We found a good one around here. So we'll be shooting the bow a lot. And then of course I got hunter safety, and I have to get my tag, and I got to get all set in that side of things. So it's a lot of things to work on. 3 months, not a lot of time.
Yeah. You're pretty close to done with the hunter safety crazy though, aren't you?
I've been blasting through that. It's a good course. It's the online one. I get why you take a hunter safety course. I totally get it. And also, it's really well done. The whole thing has a really good conservation focus. It really is about respecting the animals and trying to, do it sort of right by the animal. And that matters a lot to me. I think that's one of the biggest reasons we're doing this thing is we do love animals.
Yeah.
And I'm tired of being dissociated from the piece of meat I buy from the store and not knowing anything about it. And I'll be really proud when we are successful, whether that's on this hunt or a future one or years down the line. If I keep failing, that's fine. But eventually to have just a freezer full of meat that you know exactly where that came from, that matters a lot.
I, again, was really interested in working with wildlife, so for a really long time, I was actually very anti-hunting.
Right.
I was a vegetarian for 12 years, and I was like, no, hunting is absolutely terrible. But the longer I worked in wildlife and the more people that I got to meet, largely through the platform that is Wolf Park, I've got to network with a lot of really incredible and very well-educated individuals, far more educated than I am, about the conservation benefits of hunting, and that, no, not all hunting is evil and nefarious. Coming here, I had, unawares to me at the time, a pretty binary idea of what conservation was, and I was really radically anti-hunting. And here in the Midwest, again, I'm not from the Midwest. I'm not from areas that are affected by predation from wildlife. I'm from the city, so in my city bubble, I was like, wildlife is wonderful. Wild spaces are beautiful.
Yeah.
And then I come up here and I'm talking to the public. I'm talking to people who have been affected at some capacity by wildlife. And I'm not going to sit there and tell them that their experiences are invalid because they don't line up with what I personally believe about wild animals.
If you're going after a trophy whitetail, let's talk about this for a second. That whitetail is probably in that 4 to 5 year old range. So it has lived free, foraging on wild things, not in a pen, not fed antibiotic, nothing along those lines. It's made baby deer. It's been free its entire life, and it had one bad day, if you understand what I mean.
100%.
Okay?
Yeah.
Some of the most impactful conversations that I've had about conservation have come from hunters. We'll use the example of white-tailed deer. We've got those animals everywhere, to the point where white-tailed deer are almost considered nuisance species in a lot of the Midwest now because they're so prolific. And you have to ask, well, how did we arrive at this point? And one of the prevailing reasons we have so many deer is we eliminated their natural predator, which was the wolf and all of the other predators that would prey upon deer. And now they're everywhere.
Yeah.
And now people are like, well, if we don't want them to starve to death, which we don't, and we don't want diseases like hoof and mouth disease and chronic wasting disease running through the population, what is our other viable alternative? Well, that's hunting.
Yeah.
And a lot of the funds that come from hunting licenses and hunting initiatives get funneled back into habitat restoration, population management, and all of those things are critical for our continued ability to live alongside wildlife.
Population control. When populations are out of control, either in suburbia or the wild. In suburbia, you have BMWs and SUVs. That's really what's going to happen there. In the wild, you have disease or starvation. And let's put it in terms like this. There is no good death in nature.
Yeah.
No one just falls asleep and, like we see, like we hope to in that sense. It's pretty awful.
The reality is any environment, any ecosystem has a carrying capacity. And when that carrying capacity is hit, there are direct and indirect consequences of that.
Yeah.
So you get an overpopulation of white-tailed deer where they're going to overbrowse everything. So they overbrowse everything, well, then we've lost habitat for small mammals and birds. Birds are indicator species. You lose certain species of birds, you get an overpopulation of certain species of insects, right? It all affects each other. So not to get all circle of life on you and but it's the truth, right?
Yeah. I recognize that I can't control every element of what will happen out there on any hunt that I may go on, but I know that I can control waking up every morning and getting out to that range. And I know that it respects those animals more every time that I go. If I'm out there for 2 hours, I just respected that animal double if I was out there for 1 hour.
Did it go through?
I think it went straight through.
Well, that's good.
That is good. It's a baboon, by the way.
Yeah.
Typical desert fare.
Mr. Baboon.
I lost one here last time, so keep an eye out for it. That was before I had this, and I was just guessing. But I think it's going to be 50.
Okay.
Last time I thought more like 40. Let's see. If I can find it. This is more difficult than I would have thought. 54.
Nice. How'd you do?
Really good. Got probably a 6-inch grouping at 50 yards. Can live with that.
That's great.
Well, you guys have a great archery range in the south area, which is like the South County Archery Range. I'm not sure exactly what it's called, but it's in Jefferson Barracks Park. And I love anywhere that has like a good outdoor range. Like I like to find a place where you can have a good walk through the woods and make that a part of it. And there's so many deer out there.
Oh yeah.
So we're in Missouri, and there's a great park here. We can be outside. There's a ton of deer, which is kind of fun because we can chase them around and just kind of get used to being around deer. I came out yesterday for about 2 hours, and I put a weight in my bag and everything, so I'm struggling to just pull back today. But that's why we're here, I guess, you know. So I should be out here pretty much every day in Missouri. So this is day 2.
That was a good sound.
I think it was on the money. Let's go see how we did. Or should I see? Do you want me to see high tech how we did? I don't even have to walk to find out. We did. God, I love these things. Oh, we did okay.
Just okay?
Well, the grouping is good for 60 yards, but could have been closer to the center. I've always loved animals, but like I haven't felt a real connection to animals. You know, I wouldn't, if I saw a deer walking by, I'd probably just go, that's a deer, you know? And lately, I've been a very different person. Because when we're out there on that archery range and a bunch of deer go by, I'm like staring at them. I'm like, what do you do? What are you all about? And all of a sudden I find myself really caring about like just the habits of a deer. There's a bunch more back there. And not just that, but then I'll see like a squirrel and I'm like, what do you do? I'm curious about you now too. And now I've got really cool binoculars that I need. And I'm like, I want an excuse to use these binoculars. And now I'm looking at birds. And I feel like the love of animals and the love of hunting and the fact that they're coming together is kind of an interesting thing. And I don't know that people get that unless they can kind of get some more information and understand what hunting is really all about.
It is probably the number one paradox when you're sitting there talking to a non-hunter, or maybe someone that disagrees with you completely. How can you profess to care about the same things that you're trying to kill? And I think that what it comes down to is I look at myself as taking the middleman out of the equation, because I don't think anybody thinks for a second when they go into the grocery store and they pick up pork chops or chicken breasts or even fish. And the way I look at it is something had to give up its life in order for you to have that barbecue this afternoon. Whatever your fancy, doesn't matter. So what I enjoy is the connection to the process of going out and getting our own food.
One of the things I struggle most with, because we are such minimalists, is buying all of the right gear.
Sure.
It's a massive undertaking to get the right, even just the right clothes.
We're like basically ready though for the hunt. You've got all your clothes.
It took a while to get it all here, but the nice thing was we've been staying here for a minute, and so I could get everything shipped. I shipped some to my parents. I shipped some here. You know, we got it all put together. So there's no more equipment on my list of equipment that I need for the hunt.
Wow.
It's kind of a milestone.
That is.
So one thing I'm trying to do is learn how to judge distances better. And this guy lined up right in front of my target so that I can practice.
That's so funny.
It's kind of hard to find solid archery ranges around that have kind of all the things you might need, and this place really does. Even some things that are hard to find. So the range here has a broadhead range, which is nice. People have lots of different opinions about whether broadheads like make your arrow fly different. It just might have a different effect, and so you want to sight in with those. And so I've sighted in with the broadheads, which has been good. They've also got tree lanes, you know, full 3D lanes, to where just you have a little more obstruction. You're kind of getting used to being in the woods and judging distances a little better. And they also have a stand, so I can get some elevation. I'm not sure if I'm going to be out of a stand yet. I don't know. We haven't quite decided. I think we'll decide when we get there. And so if I am, I've got a little more preparation for shooting that angle downward.
A little bit different.
To a target. All right, we got 3 weeks until we're out there, and that is where we're at about 30 yards, so I feel pretty good with that. And I gotta work and get 40 a little tighter still, but it's a good start. See how bad that messes me up. I think pretty bad. That takes away your anchor point, doesn't it? Yeah, I don't think I can do that. I guess that's not so bad. I didn't think I would be able to shoot with the gloves on. I thought they'd get in the way, but they actually don't really bother me at all. Like, if I want to leave them on, I feel like I can, but they're also easy enough to just slip off my trigger hand if I wanted to. As far as I know, all of my clothes and gear, like, it's all good, it's ready to go. I'll be warm. We've been out there shooting and practicing, and I would say the groupings are in a place that I'm feeling really comfortable with. My form, I've I've evolved that quite a bit and gotten really good kind of instruction just online from smart people, and the groupings are getting really tight.
Yeah.
And it's getting to a point where I think I could say that I can take an ethical shot now. I think we have long enough out there that there's a good chance I'll be able to take a shot.
Yeah.
But if we have no success, I think we're still gonna have a really good time with some friends.
Yeah.
I'm gonna learn a ton, and we're gonna get a ton of nature. So I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good. But I feel like I've done everything I can do with I guess the timeline I have and the experience I have to do this.
I think so.
You approve?
I approve.
I can go shoot an animal, hopefully. I think we're ready to go to Wisconsin, and we'll get settled in, and we'll spend great time with our friends, and soon here we'll know if it turned out or not.
Tree stand right here.
I see it, yeah.
And this will also work out good. We put this blind up, we let it sit a couple days. If you do, like, let's say you hit one, and yeah, we can't, like, something's going on, I can't help you, come find it.
Right.
Just go start tracking. If, you're walking and there's just like, I walked for 100 yards and it's just little droplets of blood. It's like nothing's getting bigger, like it's really hit. Stop.
Right, because it's probably
wounded.
it needs to lose a lot to go down.
Don't get me wrong, it's happened before. If you lung shoot them, they call it. They bleed internally. They don't spew out like anything else.
All right. out there, we were just getting our feet wet in a lot of ways. Hunting for us really started once we started seeing some deer and recognizing what their daily habits were, the fields they were hanging out in, the spots they were walking through, and more often than not, we weren't in those places at that time. I remember we had one day where I was up in that really tall tree stand and you were in a blind, and nothing would ever come by us that place. It was impossible to get him to come through that spot. But you saw from the ground through all the trees and with your long lens a buck and some does over in the north field of this property. And so the next day we said, let's go out to that north field and let's try to get a setup over there. And so we went and we set up a little curtain blind and some chairs over in that spot because we thought we could see a little line of traffic that they seemed to be taking every day. We set up, and I remember that there were 2 does that came by, and they absolutely knew we were there because all they were doing was snorting at us and stomping their feet. They were really upset we were sitting in this particular spot, so they kind of took off. They didn't seem too scared, but they took off. And so after they had come by, we're just sitting there, and the big buck that we had been hoping for came right around the corner. I mean, 10 yards from me.
Yeah.
It was so fast.
Right exactly where we thought they were going to come out, too.
Right. I still couldn't tell you exactly what happened. I definitely misjudged it. I definitely rushed it. Mostly just panicked to have this giant buck looking right at me.
Yeah.
And so I missed that shot entirely, and it went just right over his back, and he just like took off, and then I remember he stopped as soon as he got to the edge of these woods, and he just looked at me like I was an idiot, which I was.
Okay, so the good news is we found it, and it is a totally clean miss. There's absolutely no blood, so I'm really pissed off that I missed that, obviously. But, and I don't think we have footage of it, but he's beautiful. So, but there's absolutely nothing on this anywhere, and it's exactly where it should be. If it had, skidded for a while, probably, or just flown right over his head, so we know he's not out there hurting, which is good.
So after that miss, I felt a little stubborn because I just felt like I couldn't leave this field. We were still seeing traffic of does coming through, and I just didn't think I had scared that buck that much, and so I was hopeful that he would come back through that area. I think actually one day a buck did.
It was him, I'm pretty sure.
But it was out of range. It was sort of outside of this bowl that we were in.
Right.
And so I didn't have a shot on him. So
I saw him really clearly.
Yeah.
Though. He was pretty.
that was that was probably one of the better video moments that you have of them. Eventually, my stubbornness wore off, and we agreed we would go try some other areas and just move around a little bit. We ended up with me up in this one tree stand, and I think the first morning we went out to that stand was kind of the morning.
I see 2 deer come in. I stand up, I get ready. I'm watching them, from behind the tree. I'm kind of looking over my right shoulder, and I notice that one of them is a buck. And we've been waiting for a buck. I see this guy. He's a little bit younger, but he's old enough to harvest.
Sure.
And I'm like, you know what? We've been here long enough. It's time to do it. So I know he's coming around the left side of the tree, so I turn around. As I turn around, the big buck that I've been watching and waiting for and missed my shot on before walks up through the grass. He's about to meet up with this guy. They're getting ready to square up.
Oh, yeah.
And so I basically just go, oh, not you, him. So as he came around the other side of the tree from me, I turned around and he's actually squaring up with, I think, the huge buck that I had the shot on last time. And so I basically pulled and just said, oh, that one. And took that shot. I feel really good about it. I definitely heard it hit. All signs pointed to a good hit. It was right where I wanted it to be. He took off into these woods. We saw where he was going, and then you and I just had to wait. And I was really excited because I felt like that was a good hit. I really had taken my time with it. I had learned from the other day, and I was ready. So we waited the amount of time I think we waited about half an hour, and then I came down. I met back up with you. We weren't hearing anything, so we started tracking the blood trail.
I think he probably crashed it over there and kind of snaked around here because it's getting stronger. But back here, I'm seeing little signs. So this has bubbles inside it. We knew it was the right color for a lung shot, but now that's a pretty good confirmation. There's air inside it.
Come down, we find the blood trail, we end up finding the arrow later. We found our arrow. I'm thinking there's a good chance we clipped some bone because it's slightly bent at the top, and one of the blades broke off. And then the back, the fletching broke off, so there's a good chance both of those are with our guy now. And the back had broken off, which is common. The front, one of the blades had broken, which is again common. All the blood was bright red. We're seeing bubbles in it, and we're going, great, lung shot.
Yeah.
But what we noticed was all the blood was on one side of the trail, usually. So we think it only hit a single lung. So we tracked him for a few hours. We gave him some time, tracked that blood trail about a half mile, 3/4 mile, and blood trail ended, and then we just start searching. Okay, so we're out here on our second day of trying to track down our buck. Here's the story. Yesterday, when we shot him, we were about a half mile away from here, in that direction. It looks like he ran quickly through here, came down to this field. This is the last place we have our blood trail, and it gets pretty sparse, so we're thinking that it's likely the blood may have stopped external bleeding. It still means it could be bleeding internally, which means he's still gonna go into shock and do all the things he's supposed to do. So when we came out here, we saw that there's quite a big cornfield out there. So that's the one area we didn't look in yesterday. Yesterday, we spent 10 hours looking for him. We went through all of these woods. We We went through all of the woods behind the cornfield, which was 90% and walking through and stuff. So we feel good that those areas are pretty searched out. Today, there's no choice left but to just walk the cornfield kind of row by row and just see if we can find him. We hope to find him. The way I'm feeling is that if we don't find him, at least I have no indications that he suffered for a long time. He just darted across here, probably went home and went to bed. So. We searched probably a square half mile, I think is what you said, of this area, and he's nowhere to be found. We were all over this property, nothing, and we had to give it up.
That's rough. I think pretty much everybody, if you've been hunting long enough, and I think that's gonna happen.
Yeah.
You can do everything right, and you still have that kind of shit happen, and it sucks. It sucks. I lost a doe last year gun hunting, and I shot the doe, tracked her for, I think it was 7 miles, like through like a bunch of different people's properties. It was nighttime. Like I crossed over like, I don't know, 3 or 4 different property lines, but I was like, I gotta find this deer, and it ended up making it to a road that it crossed over, and then I lost the blood trail on the other side of the road. It's like, there's nothing I can do now. It's devastating.
It's a sad feeling.
Yeah.
I can tell myself all these things that make me want to feel better. All my mentors in hunting have told me, this happens, buddy. Like, it happens.
Yeah.
But for my first buck,
yeah,
my first deer, for this trip, it was a real, I can't, it makes me sad. So I think we finally just called off our search for our buck. And we're feeling pretty down about that fact. We looked for him for a combined 15 hours or so, and both yesterday and today, and everywhere it seemed like he was likely to go, we started there. Everywhere he seemed unlikely to go, we finished there. We walked rows of corn, we walked through all those woods, and we just didn't see anything after that blood trail ended. So there's a lot of things that I'm thinking about right now about this. I don't like the idea that we couldn't find him. We didn't come out here to kill an animal. We came out here first because we said we wanted some of the best meat that we could get, and we wanted to harvest it ourselves and have that responsibility. It's nice how everybody talks about that this has happened to them, and this happens a lot and more often than it should, but none of those thoughts really make it go away or make it feel better. It's a really sad thing, and we're not happy. Every step you think you're gonna find him on the next one, and on your way out, you are convinced you're gonna see him at the last minute, just tucked somewhere you hadn't seen before. But the truth is, we searched that whole area. The odds that he is in that area are just so low at this point. I keep telling myself all these things to try to make myself feel better, but none of them do. I tell myself about how I want to be better, take better shots, about how this happens, even about the idea that the meat won't be wasted, it will be eaten by some animal, become part of this ecosystem. It's not the same as wasted meat from the fridge that gets thrown away. It's still here in this ecosystem, but none of it really makes me feel any better. But we still have a tag for a doe left, and so we have only a little bit of time left, and we're going to go try again and really hope for just a better experience overall, and to be able to walk away with meat, which was the whole point of us coming out here. what we should have been doing was we should have taken our doe first, and we realize that now because we were buck hunting for. I had plenty of shots on does,
Sure.
but I didn't take them because we were waiting for a buck.
Yeah.
And so ever since that happened, now we have been waiting for the does to come back, and it got warmer, and they're not moving.
Yeah.
And so we've been out there just like madmen every day trying to make it happen.
Hustling.
There's nothing you can do but just keep going out.
Yeah.
They walk by.
Yep.
Especially with does.
Yeah, does. Yeah, they're like the bucks are gonna come into the does. So if you have does, you're gonna ideally draw in bucks.
We've been seeing only bucks now. And a buck walks by me every day. One walked 10 yards away from me today. Didn't even see me. Walked right by.
I think now that it's over, the prevailing sentiment that I have is to just become better, because there were a million things that we got to learn by doing wrong this whole time.
Yeah.
And I don't want to do those things wrong again, because everything you do out there, and it's a rare thing, it doesn't happen in a lot of life, everything you do out there has a real consequence. You either get a deer or you don't. You either recover a deer from a great shot, or you make a questionable shot and you don't get that deer. And I don't want that to be a story that I ever have to tell again. And so this year for me is going to be working on all of the things that I didn't know I needed to know. And so it's going to be a year of judging distances and becoming just so accurate with being able to know that. Obviously we're going to keep shooting. That wasn't my biggest concern anyway.
Well, you had really good groupings before we went out there too. I mean, you were accurate. You had practiced that just the way that everybody had given you the advice to.
Right, but I also think part of the archery practice changes for me, because when I would go to a 3-day range, I would shoot a lot of arrows. I think that now I like the mindset of if you miss it, you miss it. Trying to simulate like a real consequence, like you cannot miss this shot,
right,
is going to be an interesting thing.
Yeah.
Because I'd never felt that feeling before. If you miss a shot at an archery range, just take another shot. But there's no real consequence. So I think I'll be kind of playing the game a little different as I train this year.
I like that.
There's some things you can't train for, like not sleeping, which will be another
things you
challenge.
don't want to train for.
Yeah. So, but I think that we can come back next year and fix a lot of those mistakes that we really just needed to do wrong once, and be in a much better position. And next year, I think you'll be busting out the bow and be out there with me.
I'm really excited for that, because I got to learn so much from this experience as well. Even though I wasn't the one taking the shot, I was in it with you the whole way.
I really look forward to the day when we can put a deer in the freezer.
Yep.
And in the meantime, I think we're going to have a lot of hunting adventures. And I think nothing is more exciting to me right now than the thought of next, November, getting back up to Wisconsin to do this again and to fix those mistakes and to find true success out there. I can't wait.